Phil Hellmuth has never been quiet about anything in his life. Not at the table, not in interviews, not on social media, not even in his sleep, probably. He is the man who has won more World Series of Poker bracelets than any human being who ever picked up a deck of cards. 17 bracelets. A number so absurd that his enemies, and he has many, cannot argue with it, no matter how much they want to. He has been thrown out of tournaments. He has reduced dealers to silence with his screaming. He has called himself the greatest poker player alive so many times that even people who despise him have started to wonder if he might be right. And through 60 years of poker history, through legends and champions and geniuses, Phil Hellmuth has never once pretended to like everyone at the table. These are the 5 players he hated the most. Phil Hellmuth was born in Madison, Wisconsin in 1964. His father was a university dean. His mother ran the household with precision and discipline. He was not supposed to be a poker player. He was supposed to be respectable. Instead, he dropped out of the University of Wisconsin one semester before graduation to play poker full-time. His family was horrified. 3 years later, he was the youngest World Series of Poker main event champion in history at 24 years old. He built everything from that moment forward on a foundation of pure belief in himself, not arrogance for show. Real, absolute, unshakable conviction that he was the best. That quality made him 17 bracelets. It also made him 5 very powerful enemies. Number 5, Daniel Negreanu. On the surface, Daniel Negreanu and Phil Hellmuth should have been allies. So both were poker's biggest personalities. Both understood the value of being visible, vocal, and entertaining. But underneath that surface was a rivalry that never fully cooled. Negreanu was everything Hellmuth was not. Calm at the table, self-deprecating in interviews, beloved by fans in a way that felt effortless. Where Hellmuth demanded respect, Negreanu simply received it. That gap drove Hellmuth quietly mad for years. The public disagreements were never explosive between them. They were worse than that. They were pointed, precise. The kind of comments that land harder than screaming because they are clearly thought through. Negreanu once suggested that Hellmuth's success came from volume rather than genius. That if you play enough tournaments, eventually the bracelets accumulate. Hellmuth never forgot that. In Phil Hellmuth's world, there is one explanation for 17 bracelets. Greatness. Anyone who suggests otherwise is not just wrong. They are an enemy. Number 4, Annie Duke. Annie Duke is the only person on this list who made Phil Hellmuth look like the reasonable one in the room. That alone should tell you something. Duke was sharp, calculated, and academically trained in decision theory before she ever sat at a poker table. She studied cognitive psychology at Columbia. She understood how people made decisions under pressure better than almost anyone in the game, and she used that knowledge at the table with a coldness that unnerved even experienced professionals. Hellmuth hated losing to anyone. Losing to Annie Duke felt like a different category of defeat entirely, which their relationship deteriorated publicly after the celebrity poker events where Duke outmaneuvered him repeatedly in front of cameras. Hellmuth could handle losing to a genius. What he could not handle was losing to someone who seemed to be studying him like a laboratory subject. Duke never screamed, never complained. She just watched, calculated, and took the pot. For a man who needed the table to feel like his stage, Annie Duke was the director who kept cutting his scenes. Number 3, Mike Matusow. Mike Matusow is known in poker as the Mouth. He earned that name honestly. Nobody in the history of the game has said more things at a poker table that he later regretted. He is loud, emotional, self-destructive, and capable of plays that make professionals stop and stare. He is also, in his best moments, genuinely brilliant. Which is exactly why Phil Hellmuth could not stand him. Hellmuth had built his entire identity around being the loud one, the emotional one, the one whose table presence was so overwhelming that opponents made mistakes just to make the noise stop. Then Matusow sat down and did the same thing louder, messier, and with less filter. Two men who occupied the same psychological space at the table cannot coexist peacefully. Every Matusow outburst felt to Hellmuth like someone doing a bad impression of him. Every Matusow final table felt like competition for a title Hellmuth believed only he deserved. They clashed publicly multiple times. The tension between them was never fully resolved because neither man was capable of backing down from anything. Number 2. Phil Ivey. Phil Ivey never screamed at a dealer in his life. He never threw chips. He never gave an interview where he called himself the greatest. He sat down, put on his headphones, and took your money with an expression that suggested he was thinking about something else entirely. That stillness was the thing Phil Hellmuth could never crack. Hellmuth's entire game was built on psychological pressure. He talked, he moved, he made the table uncomfortable until someone cracked. Phil Ivey never cracked. He sat across from Hellmuth and looked through him the way you look through a window, not with hostility, with complete indifference. And indifference from Phil Ivey was the most devastating thing he could deliver to Phil Hellmuth, because Hellmuth needed a reaction. He needed the table to feel his presence. Ivey refused to give him that. 9 WSOP bracelets, millions won in the highest stakes cash games on earth. A reputation built entirely on results with zero performance attached. Everything Hellmuth built required an audience. Phil Ivey was proof that the greatest poker players needed nothing from anyone. That comparison followed Hellmuth everywhere he went, and he hated every step of it. Number 1. Doyle Brunson. This one runs deeper than poker. Doyle Brunson was the man who built the world that Phil Hellmuth walked into. He drove across Texas with a gun in his lap, playing illegal card games before Hellmuth was born. He wrote Super System, the book that taught a generation of players how to think about the game. He won 10 bracelets across 5 decades. He was Texas Dolly, the Godfather, the original. And when Phil Hellmuth arrived at 24 years old screaming about his own greatness, Doyle Brunson looked at him the way a cathedral looks at a firecracker, impressed by the noise, unmoved by the substance. Hellmuth felt that judgment every time Brunson was in the room. The old man never attacked him directly, never needed to. A single raised eyebrow from Doyle Brunson communicated more disapproval than a 10-minute Hellmuth speech communicated anything. The bracelets were supposed to change that. 15, 16, 17. Each one a message directed at least partly at the man who had set the standard. But Doyle Brunson never stopped being the Godfather, and Phil Hellmuth never stopped needing his approval. That is the specific torture of number 1. Not that Brunson hated him openly, but that his respect, when it came, always felt like it stopped just short of enough. Phil Hellmuth will tell you he has no regrets. He will tell you the bracelets speak for themselves. He will tell you that 17 is 17 and nobody can take that away. And he is right. But the players on this list were not just rivals. They were mirrors. Each one showed him something about himself he could not control. Negreanu's ease, Duke's precision, Matusow's chaos, Ivey's silence, Brunson's authority. 5 different reflections of everything Phil Hellmuth wanted to be and could not quite become. The greatest compliment you can give an enemy is to never stop thinking about them. By that measure, Phil Hellmuth has paid every name on this list the highest tribute of his career. If you made it this far, you already understand Phil Hellmuth better than most people who have watched him for 20 years. The hatred was never really about the players. It was about the game he was playing inside his own head. Subscribe for more stories like this, the ones that go beneath the table and show you what poker really costs.